Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, did you know there's a skill many men never learn that ends up seriously limiting your professional success and satisfaction in your love and sex life? I put together a free guide to explain this unknown skill and give you exactly what you need to use it today. Get it by heading over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144. That's 44144. You'll also get access to Man Alive outtakes, raw footage, and bonus videos you can only get there. Hello, and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm excited to be here today with Chase Beringer. Chase, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much, Shayna. Honestly, I love this podcast, and I'm really excited to be here also.
Thank you. Well, I'm excited too because as we were talking about your work and working with men's, or I think it's anybody, right? Men and women, anybody's
Absolutely.
bucket lists. I was saying that this feels really inspiring in my own life, that I could use a taste of this. And a part of what I really love, we're going to talk about today, is a deeper cut on the bucket list than I've ever heard before. And so your own journey with this and the depth of what you bring to it feels not just exciting, but really, really meaningful to me.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, because it to me, it saved my life and changed my life.
Exactly.
So, I mean, it can be wishing on birthday candles, or it can be absolutely transformative.
Yeah. Okay. So for people who don't know you, let me give you an intro and then we'll take it from there, because your story is moving. So I'm excited to get into that. So Chase was a small town guy in Oregon and working really long hours as a caregiver and settling really in every area of life. And when divorce and depression came for him, he wrote a bucket list. And it's a list that was used as a blueprint for a life of exhilaration, connection, and adventure. And he's since become an expert travel hacker, life coach, and adventure addict, traveling around the world doing things like running with bulls and flying airplanes and just about every other crazy thing you can think of, and has the passport stamps and scars to prove it. And now he's helping others do the same. So again, thank you for your long journey to get here and for the work you do. And let's start with your own journey, because it's so heartfelt. You know, what you had divorce, you had depression. Give us a sense of what that was like and when you wrote your bucket list.
Yeah. So, I mean, growing up in a town of 300 people, it's all you know. I didn't grow up traveling even really hardly out of the state. So, marrying my high school sweetheart and thinking that this was life. This was my version of success, is the 3-bedroom, 2-bath house and the dogs and the cars and a pool table. And I'm like, all right, I got everything. And I truly thought that it was like, all right, this is it. I made it at 22 years old. And that's when I found out that my wife was having an affair with one of my closest friends. And yeah, it was the most traumatizing and perfect experience of my entire life.
Yeah. Amazing, right? How we can look back and see the perfection or see the lessons, and yet in the moment it's traumatic.
Oh, absolutely. Because you're blinded by pain and struck in the face. I mean, when someone punches you in the face, you don't think, where is that person's pain coming from? You just say,
good lesson for me.
I'm being attacked. So it's the exact same thing with a traumatic experience like that, where I was absolutely 100% in victim mentality and just like, why me? Oh, why me? And it was as if I had painted this beautiful picture of what my life should be like. I had the things that I thought that I wanted, and I was pretty happy with what I had. And someone just came and just took a big old black gallon of paint and just threw it over everything that I had created up until that point in my life. And at first I was horrified at the fact that what I had created was destroyed in a way, until eventually over time realizing that there's possibility now that it's a blank canvas and
But it got pretty dark for you, it sounds like. I mean,
let's just say that black paint was a metaphor for divorce and depression and suicidal thoughts. Because I really was in a place of, I'm either going to end it, and I had planned it out. I knew exactly how it was going to go, and I lived into that, and I thought about, okay, what does that look like? And, like, who's going to find me? All this stuff, like, how can I do this the best way? And I started thinking, well, like, if I'm going to go, like, if I'm going to kill myself, I might as well just do something crazy. Like, I might as well just go die on a mountain somewhere or running with the bulls or something. Because then maybe people won't be as sad. They'll be sad as hell, but they're not going to be as upset as a suicide maybe. So I was like, okay, maybe that's a possibility, that instead of just like ending it here, maybe I'll just like write a list of the craziest stuff that I can think about. And as I began, it's the first one that I wrote, I think, was Running with the Bulls in Spain. And as I started to write, I started really like one by one realizing like, the possibility of what life could be.
And it took you from that place of, oh my God, this is all ruined. And this is, my life is no longer going to be what I wanted it to be, into, wow, look at what's possible.
And it wasn't necessarily a wow, look at what's possible for me. It was just look at what's possible in general for some.
So you hadn't even gotten to the place of like, oh, this could actually be my life. It was just
this was more of a fantasy. Yeah, because I didn't believe. I mean, I had never been out of the country. I was pretty broke. I mean, I was working as a caregiver, and so
that's so important that you didn't even write the list thinking, I'm going to be able to have all these experiences, and you wrote the list from a place of being suicidal and depressed and, not even having any sense that all this was possible, but something in you had you write this list.
Well, I mean, it really was, it was an escape, just writing the list, because it took me about 2 weeks to write. So it was an escape into possibility, and into just like something to take my mind off it as well, of all that darkness. So as I was writing it, and I would get inspiration from other people's lists, I would just go online and I'd be like, hey, crazy bucket list items, most epic bucket list ever, blah, blah, blah. And I would just be like, wow, I never even thought of that. And at the end of the list, I realized how much of it was travel, and also how much of it was personal. So there was items on there like openly talk to my father, who at that point I felt like I had just a surface level relationship. Hey, how's the sports team doing? How's work? And like, that's it. Yeah. And so, which is a pretty common thing in my experience of a lot of men's relationships with their fathers. And so that was a huge one. Getting to know my grandpa, who I also, see him at Christmas and Thanksgiving, and like he's just my grandpa. But to me, I hadn't really connected with him as a soul and as like a human being with history and lessons to teach me.
Yeah.
So yeah, like getting to know him and just coaching my kids' team, things that I would want personally, because I had never planned on ever sharing this list when I wrote it. Ever. This was incredibly personal and important to me.
And vulnerable, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Very vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And so this was just like what life could be. It was a path. It was a possibility, but at the same time, it was like, it was kind of a pipe dream. Like it even felt like a pipe dream as I was writing it. Cause it was, well, I guess if I won the lottery and, everything.
Okay. So then how did you go from, wow, this is someone else's life, or this is some fantasy, to actually going on one of these journeys?
Well, it was the first thing that I ever completed off the bucket list was to do a cartwheel. So like I had never been able to do a cartwheel, and it was always like annoying to me at the fact that like everyone else can do a cartwheel. I can't do a damn cartwheel. And I was about 50 pounds heavier than I am now. So I was pretty overweight. And so I literally just went onto YouTube and said, fat guy doing a cartwheel. and then I just slow motioned it on YouTube. And I was like, all right, I think I can do this. And I took like a half hour, sprained my wrist, sprained my groin, tore my pants. But guess what? I did it. In the end, it took me like a half hour. And at the end of it, it was actually a pretty important feeling. Like it was a feeling of, I just did something that I thought that I would never be able to do in my entire life. Something so small as doing a cartwheel really did just show me that like, wow, I really thought I'd never do that. And I just did that. What else? And I didn't ask myself what else is possible, but that's the concept that my subconscious brain was
started to open to.
exactly. So I started taking the list a little more seriously. I started reading it over and saying, how much would it cost to go running with the Bulls? I have no idea. Does it even cost money to run? Do I just got to get a plane ticket and show up? And turns out, you just got to get a plane ticket and show up. And
then you can just run around.
You can just run with the Bulls in Spain. So I found out exactly how much it was going to cost me to stay in a hostel and to, get a flight there. And I saved up money I was like, okay, what time of year is it? It's in July. Mm-hmm. So it was just like perfect timing where I was like, all right, I can save up money.
How long did it take between when you started to save and when you went?
I think it was 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. So it was like, and I had like a little bit saved, and I think I put like $350 on a credit card also. Cause honestly, I was like, I'm not going to have to pay this off anyways. Like, I'm probably not coming.
Right. That was still the thought. Like, I'm going to be dead after this.
Totally. So it was, or even if I come home, then I'm like, credit card, I'll rack up that because I'm not paying it off.
Right.
So it was, I went to Spain, and during that experience of almost dying, because I really did, like I got a horn up the arm, and I got like, it was an experience where my entire body was shaking, and it was just like adrenaline was pumping through my body. And up until that point, I had been pretty numb, like to my emotions. It was just a depressive, numb state. Other than when I was drunk, and that was just because I was a 22-year-old guy dealing with a heartbreak. Yeah, I didn't really know how to handle it. So I started to feel alive for the first time, and
with a horn in your arm.
Exactly. I was bleeding, and it was like this was life. This is flowing through me, and I was shaking. My whole body was, and I just started running. I just like they already passed, but I just kept running because I was just so alive, and my smile was so big on my face for the first time I smiled in so many months. And it was, and that feeling I chased for about a year. Not only did I chase that feeling, but I also was attempting to escape my pain through travel. So I didn't have much money, so I learned how to travel hack. I learned how to get free flights and free hotels because I could not afford that lifestyle and crossing off these items.
Well, it's so amazing though. I mean, part of what you proved, right, is that you can do it. There's so many ways to do it. We don't have money as an excuse. We don't have, all these things that we make excuses for actually aren't really in our way.
Yeah. When you want something more than anything else, like for me, it was like, imagine a world of just like darkness and pain. Yeah. And then there was a little space over here that's light. Yeah. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get to that light. Like I will build my life around that. I will sell things. I will do what it takes to make it happen. And
so then you went from actually starting to feel alive, and then you said starting to chase that feeling to avoid the pain.
Absolutely. And to escape it really, and escape that world even. Because when I was traveling alone with my backpack, I never had to hear, family be like, oh, this is what she's doing. Did you hear about, her and him and blah, blah, blah. Like I don't have to deal with any of that. Nobody knows who I am or what my past is. And I can just be fully present.
Amazing. It just strikes me to this, I don't know. I just had this image go through my mind of your home life and growing up there in this small town and suddenly being out in the world. And in some ways how, I don't know, I guess it's just idea where we think we're so stuck where we are, or there's so many reasons or excuses or whatever you want to call them to say, this is where I am. This is how it should be. This is how people have done it. And the courage it takes to actually break through that. Or, I mean, in your case, in some ways it was desperation but for those who aren't at that point of desperation, maybe it takes even more courage in some way.
I think it really does, because that's the problem with mediocrity and being fine.
Yes.
It's not bad enough to actually change.
Yes.
Because the situation that you're in has to be more uncomfortable than the change itself.
Yes.
In order for change to occur. So for anyone who didn't fully get that, it's the situation that you're in needs to be more uncomfortable than the change itself. So if you are 100 pounds overweight and your knees are hurting, it's hard to breathe, you can't get into your car very easily, things like that. Change, would be not drinking soda, eating a little healthier. it's better. The change is more comfortable than the situation you're in. However, if you got 5 pounds extra, like the change that you would need to do in order to get that 5 pounds off is more uncomfortable than the 5 pounds you have on you. So you're not going to do anything about it. And that's kind of like life, where you're just fine. You're just okay. You're not super pumped about life. You're definitely not all in or feeling positive vibes, but it's just okay.
So what do you say then to people who are kind of like, yeah, I'm fine, I'm okay, or I'm getting by?
Yeah. And asking, in 5 years, what does your life look like when it's just fine and just okay? So like, who's not in your life anymore because of that? Like, is your girlfriend, wife, is she going to stay with you when it's just fine 5 years from now? How is your body in 5 years after just living a fine, okay life? Like, how is your virality, how's your energy? How do you actually feel like inside of you when you wake up? Are you just rolling out of bed, pissed off, scrolling the news feed to, like put the little angry face on Facebook?
And you said even in your bio that you were settling. It's like, right, imagining how's that going to feel if I'm just settling for that kind of life, even for the next 5 years, because there's, hopefully another 40, 50, 20, however old you are. But right, even to imagine, wow, what if it does go on like this?
Absolutely. And looking at people in your field. So let's say, for example, you're an accountant or you're a teacher or anything, looking at people in your field who've been in that field for 15, 20 years, looking at their life, their lifestyle, their health, where they're at with their stress levels, and asking yourself, is that the life that I want? Because it's an easy way to look and say, all right, 40 hours a week working for a job that I don't like, that's what it looks like 15 years from now. And do I want
it seems like there's a need to find a belief that something else is possible.
It's creating that possibility for yourself. Yeah. It's
I like that, creating
It's just imagining that it is possible for this to happen. Oftentimes people find themselves, and you got to be real honest with yourself if this is you or not, but people find themselves in a victim state, a victim of circumstance, of just like, this is the way that it is. I'm in this box. You had said that earlier of like this is just who I am. This is the way the world is.
Yeah.
However, if you can become aware of it, because it's the first step, is just becoming aware of the fact that you're currently in a life that you don't want to be in. That's number one. Yeah. Just being aware, because oftentimes it's like, I'm okay, whatever. And you get distracted. You get distracted by other people. You get distracted by relationships, by the television, by Facebook, and you go through life. And then all of a sudden you wake up and you're 45 and you're looking back on the last 30 years of your life. And you're just like, holy shit, how did this happen? Like, how am I 45 years old and I haven't done any of the things that I wanted to do?
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing too. I mean, I've had a couple of people pass away in the last year and, suddenly, surprisingly, and it's just like, wow, right. To really live with the reality check that there's no guarantee and it could be gone at any time, not to create panic or, where you like, suddenly I've got to give up all my responsibility. But even part of what I see as possible with the bucket list is like, okay, how do I continue to live a life where I'm taking care of my responsibilities and I get to have excitement and I get to, take the roof off or take the lid off the box on what's possible?
I love that. And especially you just hit on a really important part around like, how do I live a life of adventure and adventure meaning a lot of different things. It could be traveling or it could be, being introspective and adventure in a conversation. But how do I live a life of adventure without dropping everything?
Yeah, good question.
If you have kids, if you have a job, if you have a mortgage, and you're like in a position where, okay, I want to have these things in my life, but also like I'm a pretty like, I don't like a lot of change. I don't like a lot of stuff. And that's perfectly fine. I just did a workshop last week at the World Domination Summit in Portland. And it's a big conference for really excited, awesome people who are wanting to change the world. Yeah. And a workshop that I did was named that specifically around how to live a life of adventure without dropping everything.
Nice.
And I think that one of the more important things to remember is that adventure does not necessarily mean that you are in Positano or you're running with the bulls in Spain. Adventure can be found in your everyday life. And
Mm-hmm.
literally one of my favorite ones, I'll just drop this really quick.
Please, yeah.
One of my favorite adventures to do is simply getting lost in your own city. Finding an area close to downtown where there's still a lot of shops and stuff that you don't normally go around. Put your cell phone off, put it in your pocket, your backpack, your purse, and just simply start taking lefts and rights. Or another thing that I do is finding, how do I find the best bakery in town?
I do that with the best coffee in town or something, right?
Exactly.
Like find whatever the thing is that you want.
Yeah, and because that's what adventure is. Yeah. Adventure is an experience that is slightly uncomfortable, that pushes that comfort zone edge, and it's usually exciting. So it's like an uncomfortable or exciting experience that usually leads to growth, because most uncomfortable experiences do.
Right. So interesting. I was just thinking about how, we're in this age, this cell phone computer era. And I had a really funny conversation the other day with someone who was recounting a tale of her boyfriend whose phone died, and he was supposed to meet up with her. And because there was no phone communication, he didn't have his map. He didn't have a way to be in touch with her. And it was so interesting. It had me really think about, wow, when we know exactly where we are and exactly how to get where we're going, it takes the adventure out of life.
Absolutely. And that's why,
just to get rid of it, like you said.
I have my company is actually like a tour company. It's an adventure tour company. But my number one thing that I tell people is like, this is not a tour company. This is an adventure company. And like the adventure is found between the lines of the itinerary. Yeah. So if you're having an itinerary for your life, where it's like, this is what I do. I go to school, I go to work, I go to, drop the kids off, and it's the same, that's the itinerary. But the thing that your brain is actually going to remember from your day, the thing that you're actually going to have a story about, is the unexpected. And you have to create the space in your life for adventure to even happen.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. I was thinking, as I was just doing some business brainstorming this morning, I wasn't getting as far as I wanted to, but I just kept thinking, you know what? It's just important to have this space. Because even as I just start thinking about, okay, what more do I want to create, or what more do I want to do? When I don't give myself the space, nothing happens. When I give myself the space, it may feel like I'm not getting anywhere, but it's kind of moving the ball forward a little bit. And it seems the same with, with life and adventure. Like, okay, if we never give ourselves the space, whether even if it's 20 minutes to take a walk in between work and get lost, or just not use the map and just look, right? I mean, when we're driving everywhere, you don't get to see what's actually in your neighborhood or around you. Yeah. So having that space, it could be so simple, 10-minute walk, 20-minute walk, whatever it is.
And one thing that most people don't even think about is like, there's an entire universe of adventures within.
Right. I was just thinking that too.
So like going on and like asking yourself uncomfortable questions. Yes. And asking yourself the things that you have been avoiding for a long time. Like that is just a wormhole of fun. Right. Understanding yourself, and it can be a hell of an experience to be able to not constantly, for me personally, I was trying to find myself outside of myself. I was trying to travel the world and become this person, this man that I had molded in my head of what does a man look like that is successful? Because I grew up in a situation where we didn't have a lot of money. I grew up in a trailer in the woods, and so success is something that was consistently driving me. So for me, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, that was success. I figured it out, and then it's like, okay, how do I get that? And then, I had that by like 19 years old. And then when that ended, it's like, okay, and after some darkness, I wasn't really thinking about success while I was thinking about the darkness, but about the darkness lasted for about a year after my divorce. And even when I was traveling, I was still laughing. I would still have fun, and it was still there. Yeah. That depression and those
That's
thoughts.
Actually a really good point too, right? That you don't have to wait until the darkness goes away to take on these adventures.
Absolutely. And that's also another flip side of that is, just because you're having a blast and you're having fun doesn't necessarily mean that there aren't that's not still dwelling like deep inside of you. And just pushing that down and pushing those emotions, especially for men, pushing those emotions down And as my friend Michael Rostowski says, it's like a beach ball and trying to hold it underwater. And then it just all of a sudden you don't know when it's going to happen, but it's going to pop out fast. And all of a sudden it just goes out a way that you had no idea it was about to go out.
Totally.
And it just comes out in a really bad way.
Totally. I mean, I think that's why I feel in some ways drawn to you, right? It's like there is access for men here in creating a bucket list or creating adventure, whether it's internal or out in the world, to start to have more joy, more meaning, more excitement, more connection, all of that. And, in the work that I've done with men over the years, right? You also need to get some support, whether it's with a coach or a therapist or friends or whatever it is, but you can't just, like you were saying, you can't escape that pain only by going off and having adventures.
Yeah.
There's some deeper work to do there too.
Absolutely. And it's doing your best to find that balance of, like if that's down there, like for a lot of people it is, especially if you haven't really like drudged up the fun traumatic experiences of the past to deal with. Those, they're still there. And usually they show up in ways that don't make sense. Like they'll show up as you just being angry when you wake up. Mm-hmm. Or they'll show up as you having an outburst during an argument with your partner, and all of a sudden, something triggers you. And instead of realizing and being aware of the fact that you're exploding in this moment, you're caught up in that emotion that came out of nowhere. And later on, you look back on that and you're just like, what the hell just happened? Like that was absolutely ridiculous. And instead of looking at the trigger and saying like, okay, she said this, and why the hell does that piss me off so bad? Like, why can I not control myself? Yeah. And instead of looking into that, oftentimes people just flow into the victim state instantly and just say, F her, like she's an ass, it's all about her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's important to really start to look inside and realize, most of the things we get triggered by actually have not very much to do with the person who's sitting in front of us, and way more to do with all of the people in our past. But, it's hard to see that.
And our own judgments about ourselves. I think that's a big one as well is, sure. I had someone comment on one of my photos or one of my videos and talking about privilege around just like how like, hey, you should be acknowledging your privilege and blah, blah, blah. And instantly I flew into a victim state and I was triggered because I was like, I grew up poor. This abuse, like in my head. And luckily before I started typing, but that was just all like the biggest victim, he was screaming inside of me. Yeah. Poor you. This person doesn't know how horrible it was. And until I actually started playing around that, okay, like I'm upset and I'm triggered. And why am I triggered? Because there's a little bit of truth to that. In fact, after thinking about it for a while, there's a lot of truth to that. Like as I travel and I'll be in, I was just in Myanmar, for example, and I look at someone who is, I'm not going to say that I was poor because we had a roof over our head and stuff. And a lot of the people around the world who are actually poor don't have that.
Right. Interesting perspective shift.
Comparatively with them, I was middle class basically, comparatively with what's happening there. And as I see a little girl who truly is poor and realizing her ability to escape that poverty is significantly less than my ability to escape that poverty being a white male in America and having the opportunities that I do. And that is privilege, as I had no part in that. But it's easier for me just because of where I'm born and the way that I'm born. Doesn't mean that I'm bad or anything. It just simply means that I could recognize that, yes, I did have it easier and I do continue to have it easier to come out of that poverty, because poverty, in my experience, is the worst thing to stay in and it's the best thing to grow out of. Entrepreneurs who are broke are grinders. Yes. I love them. Like, I love my friends who used to be broke. And like, I met my roommate when she was living out of the back of her car as a waitress and we were hanging out like 3 years ago. I was a caregiver and she was a waitress living out the back of her car, hanging out. And now she's a multimillionaire with like an incredible brand, and she's changing the world in her way, and I'm changing the world in my way. And that's the beauty of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good. Well, this is amazing. What would you say, what's a first step for a man who's like, oh, hey, well, this sounds interesting. And either, wow, my life is, kind of bland and boring, or wow, it's really painful over here, or even this just seems like a really cool thing to do. Where do you have people start?
So starting is just the mentality that when you're writing the list, you're not actually writing it for this version of you. Like the things that you're capable of doing now are different than a version 10 years from now, 15 years from now. You may be able to do things then that you're not able to do it now. So creating the possibility of things that you can't afford right now, or things that you don't have the connections for right now. There's, for example, like when I wrote my list, I couldn't do almost any of those. I could probably do like 10 of them at the beginning, but I became the man that could accomplish those dreams that I wanted. So an easy way of thinking of it is just before going into it, just saying like, I'm just going to write down whatever I want. And when something comes up around like, that's not reasonable, or that's, which it will, on almost every single item, there will be something that, oh shit, sorry, hold on. My headphones just,
that's okay.
Just popped out. I got a little excited there with my, yes.
Well, that was interesting, right? It was about the part about it being unreasonable, that there will always be. Yeah.
100%. So, as you even begin, just getting the right mindset of, it's probably kind of like a little bit silly. And a lot of the items are like, oh, well, this is like way out there, or this isn't for me. But the real question is, do you want it?
Yeah.
Is this something that you want to do? And if the answer is yes, then that's when you plan it and you work towards it. But we'll get to the planning. Right now, when it comes to writing, it's just, what do I want?
Right.
And just let it flow at first.
Which is interesting, because as you said that, I just felt like this weight in my heart of how many men I've worked with who don't allow themselves to want, or, this idea that as a man, it can be selfish to want more than you have, or it can be selfish to take away resources from your family. So I love that, taking everything else away, like whether it's going to happen, how it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and just, do I want it?
Absolutely. And I think that's a huge piece of the selfish thing is, you're selfish not to do this stuff. Like if you have children, for example, like, are you going to be the father that actually went out and proved to your kids, not just telling them, but showing them through your actions of what a man living his life fully is, and doing the things and chasing his dreams like that? Just model that for your children. And if you don't have kids yet, but you want kids, then become the man that your kids would look up to. Become the grandfather that you'll be able to tell your kids some really incredible stories, even the conversations that you have, or the little things, or the giant adventures, because it's not one or the other. With the bucket list, it's simply, what do I want? I want to have a conversation with my father, an honest, open conversation. What do I want? I want to fly an airplane. What do I want? I want to do a cartwheel. I've never done one. I want to do that. Like it doesn't necessarily have to be, I want to climb Everest. It can be, I just got back from Everest 3 weeks ago.
I know.
But it doesn't have to be climb Everest.
I love that.
You can just do the things that you want. There is nothing too small, and there is nothing too big.
Amazing. Yeah, I really love that piece. There's nothing too small, and even for myself as a parent right now, it can seem like, oh, what's on my bucket list would be, to go out one night next week and actually find music I love, right? It's like, we don't have to judge it that it's too small, or that someone else's life, it would be, something they could do all the time. We just get to actually base it on our own desires and our own lives.
100%. And that's the biggest thing that I hear as pushback for bucket lists is really two things. One is my life is going to change, and so why would I write a list right now when I'm going to have kids in 3 or 4 years, and then I'm probably not going to be able to do it. And the other one is like, I'm setting myself up for failure by saying I want all these things and then not being able to get them.
Oh, that's an interesting one, right? Like, I might as well not even write it down if there's the potential that I'm going to feel like a failure because I haven't done it.
Absolutely. And there's a lot like that. That's coming from such a deep place of fear that's not something where I could just say a sentence and they go, oh, like, okay, I don't, like everything's fine now, because that question of like, why even write it down? Why even try is coming from a place of you're so depleted of energy and vitality, and you're so depleted of possibility that just even speaking your truth in the form of your bucket list, because that's what you're doing, is you're really claiming what you want, is terrifying. You can't do
well, and that's one of those, right? Like we said, there's some deeper work to do there, some deeper excavation to do there of, well, how did I get so terrified? And what caused this to be my reality? And can I see another way? And all of that.
Yeah. And I think that's important also to address the family part of like, okay, well, what happens when I have my family? Great. That's amazing. Add to the list, because there's going to be so many things that you want to do. I want to see my child's face at Disneyland when he's 4 years old. And like, I want to see that. Like, okay, what else do we want to do? I want to go on a family vacation to whatever. I want to coach my kids' team, build them a tree house. All of these things that you can now add to the list. It doesn't mean that you have to take off things. You can if you choose. It's your list.
Right. At any point, right? You could just delete something if it no longer feels like you want it.
Exactly. So oftentimes people get caught up in that of like, what if I change my mind? And it's like, then you delete it, because it's yours. It's your life. You are not chained down by the list. The list is simply a blueprint for your life. Yeah. It is showing you of like, this is the life that I want to live. Because for me personally, I had no idea that I wanted to travel so much. It was so pushed down on me because of I just didn't have the possibility. It just wasn't what people did. Yep. So I had pushed that down after writing. I'm like, oh, I would love to go to the full moon party in Thailand. I would love to go ziplining in Costa Rica, go on safari, and I was like, oh my God. And then I look at it and I'm like, holy moly, I got to get started. Like I got to travel. I didn't even know that I ever had any intention or desire to even leave the country before.
That's why it's so perfect that you're doing this, right? Because it's not like you started out knowing, oh, I love adventure, I love travel, I love all these things. It was just not even clear for you.
Absolutely. Yeah. I basically started I'm just a dude. Yeah. Like that was my goal, is like, if I can just make $18 an hour and working full time, like I'm going to be set. I can get a truck and I can have my motorcycle and my house. I can pay my mortgage and go paycheck to paycheck. Yep. And I'm a good worker, so I'm never going to lose my job. And if I do, I'll dig ditches and that'll be great.
Wow. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for, both the inspiration and the excitement, and also the depth, like I said, of this, the depth where this came from your pain and your struggle. And it's really beautiful to see you having turned this around and then offering it to others.
Yeah. And I think that's the important part, is like after doing also a lot of personal development work myself, coming to a place of wanting to live and not just live in the adrenaline pumping places, but actually wanting to live. And I'm almost done with my list. I got 79 items done out of 100.
Wow.
So there's
time for writing more.
Yeah. So that's my original list. I have like a little secret list on my cell phone, because I do believe.
You haven't shown anyone yet.
Yeah, because I believe in like I really do believe in the power of a bucket list, of like writing down what you want, planning it out, and then actually doing it. How much money does this cost? What time of year would I be doing this? How much time would it take for me to save up money for this? How can I make it happen? It's incredibly important.
Thank you. Any last thing you want to leave men with besides how they can find you?
I think it's really important for men to know that it really is possible for your life to get better than it is right now. Yeah. I think that's so simple, and it's so overlooked as just life advice of, it's actually possible for your life to get better than it is right now, and it doesn't have to be hard. So with that, I'll just say that you can find me at thebucketlestlifestyle.com. And also, like, I'm pretty active on Facebook. I love it when like people find me from podcasts and they message me like, hey, like I heard you on this podcast, or I heard you on this interview or the TV. And it's just, if you're dope,
to being contacted.
I'm open to like, just friend me. There's plenty. I love amazing human beings. And I'm sure plenty of the men who are listening to this are absolutely cool people as well. So I'm open to that. And thebucketlestlifestyle.com. It also not only gives you information on like how to travel the world, but it's inspiration and our adventures. We're going to Peru next, and then Thailand and Hawaii and Brazil. And, there's all these epic adventures we're heading on.
So great. Thank you so much for being here today.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope it gives you a sense of what's possible and how good your life can be. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe to Man Alive and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/manalive to get outtakes, videos, and raw footage I only share there. These are some of the most interesting parts of these expert conversations. You can also grab your copy of The Unknown Power to accelerate your career and solidify your confidence with women, because the two are related, and I know you don't have to settle for one or the other. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.